Everyone, greetings. My name is Amy Hackett. I work in the Office of Undergraduate Education. I use she, her pronouns, and I have the pleasure of kicking off our annual orientation training session. So today we're going to be focusing on updates from our campus partners, and we get to welcome many advisors and campus colleagues into this Zoom session this morning as we launch in our annual endeavor of welcoming our newest students into the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. I'm feeling excitement as I think about all of our new students who are coming for their first time and first experience at the U of M. I know that they have excitement, they probably have nervousness and a lot of anxiousness as comes with this annual rite of passage. So I hope this is a time when you can also harness some of that energy and excitement and feel some of the feels that students are experiencing right now. You mean a lot to them as you help them connect to campus and to resources and classes and university partners, and you play an important role in this annual endeavor. So I want to acknowledge and thank you for the many ways in which you show up throughout the summer to advise, to welcome, and to start creating that sense of belonging for our students. Your guidance, your insight, and your wisdom matters a lot in helping them start the process of adjusting to campus. As a visitor on this land, I have a responsibility to acknowledge the grounds on which we gather in the pursuit of higher education. I acknowledge that the University of Minnesota Twin Cities is built within the traditional homelands of the Dakota people. It is important to acknowledge the peoples on whose land we live, learn, and work as we seek to improve and strengthen our relations with our tribal nations. We also acknowledge that words are not enough. We must ensure that our institution provides support, resources, and programs that increase access to all aspects of higher education for our First Nations students, staff, faculty, and community members. Our presence at this training today is part of an enduring history of violence, forced assimilation, relocation, and colonization of Native lands, both in Minnesota and across the country. May we consciously reflect on the legacy of colonialism and take meaningful action towards reconciliation, decolonization, and truth-telling. There also continues to be much violence and heartbreak in Minnesota and in our world, and we must continuously dedicate ourselves to the ongoing pursuit of equity and justice. I have a few logistics to cover before we turn things over to our prevent centers for the day. We are recording this session and it will be distributed and posted to the advising website afterwards. We're in a Zoom meeting today, so you can use chat to ask questions. There are typically a lot of questions that come at orientation training. So we're going to try to elevate those to presenters when they're university and probably applicable to a lot of students and staff. We have breakout rooms at the end that you can go to ask questions that might be individual or more unit specific. We also have captions set up for today, so you can go to your show captions button to adjust settings as needed on your end. We'll be sure also to post in the chat links to the slides and resources for the day. So that'll be coming in just a bit. Just to give you a sense of our agenda for today, we're going to be hearing from the Orientation and Transition Experiences program, and then from the Disability Resource Center. We have time for a quick break, and then we will move on to our last presenters for the day, which is International Student and Scholar Services and the Minnesota English Language Program. And then last but not least, time for additional questions. We've heard at past orientation sessions that there's just not been enough time to get questions asked or answered, or time for nuanced, more individual style questions. So we have breakout rooms that are going to be opening up from 12 to 12:15, and we encourage you to go into those spaces if there wasn't time to get to your question in the session, or if you have something that's more individual unit specific, or if you just want to hear what questions other people have and learn that way. So our three presenters offices today are going to be hosting those rooms and will be available to answer additional questions for you. All of our training materials for the day are available in a Google folder, and we have a couple of ways in which you can access that material. If you registered for this event today, we sent you out links to all of the handouts yesterday, so you can use your email to pull up those links. If you didn't register, rest assured, we're going to post to the chat the links to our materials for today. They're also posted online on our advising website, z.umn.edu/advisor training resources. So we'll make sure to post throughout today's session links to these resources too as well, so that you can access everything that we've curated for you for the day. I want to also point out that beyond our presenting offices today, we have assembled updates and information from a lot of our offices and our campus partners. We're interested in sharing information, updates, and refresher information with you as you work with orienting new students this summer. So the home folder for sort of anything and everything orientation related that has all of our handouts, all of today's materials, all of the Thursday's materials. Our part 2 is at z.umn.edu/orientation 2026. And I'm going to click on that link right now just to show you. We have in that folder, we have our part 1 and our part 2. So these are our live training materials for today and Thursday. And then we also have a variety of on-demand resources for you. We've got information from our transfer specialist. And then for today, you are here to learn updates from campus partners. So we don't have time, unfortunately, to invite every single one of our campus partners to this training session. So we have gathered on-demand information for you about many other campus partners, which you will find in this folder. So for example, if you're interested in updates from MK, you can click on their file, or the Pre-Health Student Resource Center, or one area that I know when I was advising students during orientation was supporting students who might come in and think they want to be in the college I was in, and then all of a sudden change their mind. And so if you're interested in supporting change of college students, you can click on the change of college folder. And in there is a great handout on ways to refer students who are interested in changing colleges, as well as how to schedule an appointment with the change of college coach. And I love this part of the handout where it really spells out clarity. Who should I refer students to? And so it breaks down into 3 categories, how you can support and refer students who are interested in changing colleges. Another handout, going back to our handouts folder, you might be interested in how do I support my first gen students this summer. So you could look in the first gen centers folder, and they have a handout. And then if you open up that handout, they provide some background information about their office. And I really love their second page because it outlines really simply the 4 or so different programs that they're running for students. So things that you can learn a little bit about and refer students to throughout their experience this summer. So I'm going to go back to our main orientation training folder, which again is z.umn.edu/orientation 2026. And I'm going to navigate you to where you need to be for today. So today we are in part 1 training updates from campus partners. And if you click on that, all of the handouts from all of our presenters today are located in these folders. So you have landed right where you want to be for the day. Our first presenting office is going to be the Orientation and Transition Experiences office. So you can click on that folder and then you'll be right where you need to be right now. Before I do turn things over to the orientation office, I want to give a huge shout out to the many, many people who have helped make today possible. This is one of our largest training programs for the year. It takes more than 6 months to plan and execute, and we'll be sending out an evaluation form at the end of today's session. We really hope you give feedback. We also use the evaluation from today to get your ideas for training for next year. So would love to hear what you'd like to see in the future for training, so be sure to fill out the evaluation. The committee that really helped plan today is Casey Gregerson, Sarah Hilger, Hussein Bandy, Linda Kim, Sarah Campbell, and Emily Stoll. So huge shout out and kudos to that group for being the think tank for identifying what are the need to know topics for you all for this year. Like to give a shout out to my colleague Sarah Gibbs, who is here providing behind the scenes support for the Zoom world today. Thank you so much, Sarah, for all your help and for your massive work in curating all of the handouts. And a shout out to all of our presenters who are outlined on this slide, along with all of the offices who have provided resources for today. So that's it for getting us kicked off. I'm going to stop sharing my screens and turn things over to Lizette. So Lizette, if you can go ahead and start sharing.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everyone. It is good to be with you all this morning to talk about all things orientation 2026. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right, we're all set? Everyone can see that? Great, thank you. Well, we are just a few days away from orientation kicking off, a few weeks maybe. Our orientation leaders actually are en route to their retreat right now. So they moved in yesterday. I was excited to give that update to everyone in this space. We have 34 really amazing leaders that are going to be joining us this summer. So I wanted to start this year's training with centering some of our outcomes and giving some background on how it is that the orientation, planning, and programming comes together. OTE is guided by all of our obviously mission, vision, and we have a significant amount of outcomes for each of our programs. And so by participating in the orientation program, new students will identify and apply effective transition strategies that support their academic, social, and personal success throughout their first year. That's our overarching goal. And then each of the sessions that you'll see on the schedules as I talk through things also has very specific learning outcomes. And so we work with our campus partners to share those with them. We're also centering those as we're creating the rest of our experiences. And in our office, we also do quite a bit of what we call our content overview. And so we're looking at what does a student receive in their new student checklist? What do they receive in their orientation prep course? It's part of the new student checklist. What are they seeing at their in-person orientation? How does that build on to what happens at Welcome Week? And then how does that continue with FYE experiences, etc. So you can see here that some of the very specific ones, I pulled out a couple. This is not all encompassing, but we have a resource fair during orientation, which nearly 30 different offices from across campus are available to new students and their families to be able to engage with them. And really our hope is that students and families will increase their awareness of the campus departments, programs, and services that we have to support them here at the university. The next thing that they do immediately after the resource fair is that they go to the university welcome, where we officially welcome them in Northrop Auditorium and get them to understand just the greatness that the University of Minnesota Twin Cities offers to them, and starting to build that sense of belonging, connection, and community to our campus. We are guided by the Student Success Framework, so all of our programming must touch at least one, if not more, of these specific areas. So we center academic success, sense of belonging, well-being, and thriving. And so as we are working with the Orientation Advisory Committee, as we're working as a team in our office, we're always asking ourselves, how does what we are creating for our students center the Student Success Framework? How does it build upon what we hope students will accomplish while they're here? So as I mentioned, students kick off their orientation experience with their new student checklist. This picture here that shows new student checklist, orientation, and welcome week is a lot of what we use to center our work in our office. And so we know that each of these, it's kind of like a concentric circle. They build off of each other to create the student's transition experience. So this year, the new student checklist launched on March 25th for NHS and subsequently on April 1st for NAS students. It is 3 parts, so students are engaging with it in 3 different sections. But if a student is admitted, let's say today, and they accept tomorrow, they would just kick off from wherever we're at. So we've launched the May 1st section of the new student checklist, which includes the orientation prep course. And any student who is accepted and confirmed as of today would kick off with doing what was in part 1 and part 2 all at once, and then they'll get their part 3 later in July. It's important to note that in the new student checklist, we have quite a bit of things built into there. There's a lot of central information, a lot of customized information, and so key thing to know is every new student is asked to submit their U-Card photo so that their U-Card is printed for them when they arrive at orientation in that part 1 of their new student checklist. And so as many of you experience and know, we are currently all buildings except the Union where our office is at are on U-Card access only. And so we've been working for several years now to have the U-Card be a key outcome of the new student checklist. So every student submits their U-Card photo, the U-Card team prints that U-Card before their orientation date, and at their orientation check-in, they actually receive their university U-Card. And it is active for them to use during their time at orientation. So the student's U-Card will be active and ready to go so that when they need to get to your facilities for advising or for a connection point, they will be able to use that U-Card during their orientation experience. And it is only active for the 2 days that they're at orientation. So then it'll not be active until they come back for welcome week. So I thought I'd share that, as that's something that is likely top of mind for many of us as we're all continuing to navigate ensuring that we have our U-Card as we go about campus. So we'll kick off with NAS orientation. So NAS orientation looks a little different this year, just given the Special Olympics and timing constraints and date constraints that we had. So we have a total of 6 all-in-person sessions where they're receiving university-wide content and an hour and a half with their college of admission. You can see the dates here. And then all of the colleges are obviously, you all are remote advising the students on dates that work best for your college of enrollment. And so thank you all for being flexible and adaptable to this year's constraints with the Special Olympics and the uniqueness that that is to our usual orientation calendar. This is what that transfer student orientation experience is going to be. We are really excited to have a more robust schedule this year for transfer students. We had a subcommittee of the Orientation Advisory Committee comprised of several colleagues that work really closely with the transfer student experience, including Sarah Ehrig and several others, to help inform how we put sessions together for this transfer schedule. We looked at data from the transfer student survey. We looked at some of their retention pieces. We looked at things that transfer students have said they wish they had known. And so that is how we came to the different sessions that are here on this schedule. So we've added One Stop as a presentation to transfer students. They'll obviously hear from the U-Card. Many of our transfers, if not all, are commuter students, and so we have a commuter student resource presentation for them. We are going to be at Northrop this year, which is also new. We're excited to be able to showcase that space like we do for first year students with our transfer class. And then our colleagues from CAPE, so shout out to Kai and his team, are presenting to our transfer students. We know that many transfer students come in and while they have a selected major, they still sometimes are exploring or trying to better understand what that means for their careers. And so I'm excited to have Kai and the team be able to connect with them. Task is going to be a part of it, as well as a new session called Navigating Your Transfer Transition to the U. So we're really looking forward to be able to add more to this student experience and to be able to build on connections, which transfer students shared with us. They felt like they hadn't met another transfer student in our previous transfer schedule. And so this year they're actually going to be able to be in small groups led by orientation leaders, which we have not done in the past. And they will get to have lunch in Pioneer Dining Hall, which is really a unique opportunity that we haven't been able to offer in the past. And then they'll head to their college meetings and they'll be meeting with each of their colleges to learn more about the college experience and the services that each of the colleges provide. Again, just some of the highlights that I already discussed, but want to make sure I have it on there as some of our colleagues will see this at a different time. I'll try to check for a quick question here.
Yeah, for the 20-minute walk to college meetings, do you know how the St. Paul transition will be facilitated?
Yes, we will have buses similar to when we do first year orientation. And so we will be busing the St. Paul students over to CFANS. And then just like we do for NHS orientation, they will be taking the campus connector back from once they're done with their appointments. All right, I'll continue to the NHS orientation experience. So we have a total of 25 in-person sessions for the class of 2030 in June, July, and August. The first one will kick off on June 4th, so we're getting really close. We will continue to facilitate their check-in and arrival just like we did last year, and so students and families are asked to park at the East River Road Garage where they will be greeted by our staff. We collect their luggage on level C of the East River Road Garage, and then we have buses to transport them. They're the university buses to transport them from this area to Northrop and have them continue with their check-in process there at the Northrop Lilly Plaza entrance. Where they'll go, once they've checked in, go upstairs to the resource fair, get to engage with our colleagues there. And we have a CAPE session in the morning that students can attend if they're open to that. And then we also have the expected honors college session that every honors student should attend. It's important to note that we do ask students to arrive based on a cadence that we've established with timeframes given their last name. And so if you are last name A through G, you're given a specific time and so on and so forth. We started that last year and it really helped us to ensure that we had a steady flow of folks arriving and being able to manage their luggage and arrival process. If you are someone that parks in East River Road Garage, you know that the elevators have been in constant fixed mode over the past several months. And so we are working really closely with parking and transportation services to hopefully be at a place where we don't see too much congestion on the elevators the mornings of orientation this season. Here's a more in-depth look at the schedule once that morning portion takes place. They have a university welcome. We dismiss them and send them to various locations. Family members come back here to the Union, to the Great Hall. Students will continue on to the theater here in the Union, and they will receive a quick schedule overview. They have a session called Thriving at the U, which is a collaboration between the Office of Student Affairs, OED, and OTE, really showcasing and normalizing that students will experience transitions that are unique to them and their own experience, and getting them to think about the resources that they'll engage with and how they can thrive at the university. They all hear from one stop, and then they're dismissed in their small groups with their orientation leaders over to lunch at Pioneer Hall. And after their lunch, they will go to their college meetings, which you could see here, all the various college meetings and locations. So we facilitate lunch in a staggered format to ensure that students are given enough time to eat their meal, also be able to engage with each other, and then walk to the location that they need to get to, depending on the distance and where that is at. We after the college meetings, we'll continue to have our Recwell session that was new this past year. We learned a lot about that session. We saw great engagement from our students in terms of getting some movement in during the day. They do not have free roaming access to the Recwell. It is a facilitated activity that we're doing with them in the large MAC gym. But for those students that require more of a quiet decompression space, we do also offer that as an option for any student who needs that. It is important to note that throughout all of our program, we do provide what we call a sensory guide, which does give students the opportunity to better understand what each session's level of involvement is going to be, whether there's loud noises in the space, whether there's triggering conversations that may take place, etc. And we provide this to our students in the morning so that they can head to a quiet space if needed, and we have designated spaces in all of our areas to ensure that if a student needs to walk out for a moment, do what they need to do to take care of themselves, that they can do so. And that continues obviously at the Recwell as well. For those students who are in the honors program, they do not have the opportunity to take part in the Recwell activities because they have their honors program session that they must attend. And then the students will continue on to their either living on campus session, which is for those who have a residential hall contract established or hoping to establish that contract, or there's also the commuting to the U session that they can attend, which is a collaboration with Student Affairs and their off-campus team as well. Once that session wraps up, the students will head to their transitioning to college session, which is what the orientation leaders facilitate in their small group. This was a change from last year. So we used to do the transitioning to college session much earlier in the day. And last year we made an adjustment to accommodate our campus partners who had expressed just some concerns with having to stay much later in the day. And so we made the change, and it seems to work well for students and for staff. And so that is continuing this year. Once they finish their facilitated dialogue with their orientation leaders, that centers the W curve. So really looking at transition theory, the student shares their personal story and how they transition to the campus, normalizes that there's ups and downs in the experience, and how they overcame those ups and downs in the transition, and actually connects them to the resources that the student used as a first year or second year, whatever the orientation leader is in their class standing. After that, they will either go get their luggage that we collected from them, or check into the residence hall, which is Comstock, or go to dining. We have that on a staggered rotation just to ensure that we're not having folks wait in long lines for any portion of it. And once they do any of those in whatever sequence is best for that student group, we will head to Gophers Take Care of Gophers. And so this is a facilitated conversation with our intern, so higher level student team, that starts to talk about sexual assault and bias intervention, alcohol, and information that they need to know. So if you think about all of the state mandated information that we must provide to a new student, this is where that's happening. We're having dialogues about safe walks, we're talking about safety on campus, and ensuring that students are aware of that and how they can intervene in different situations. There's a lot of large group dialogue and small group dialogue. And again, we're also very cautious of how we're navigating this given students' lived experiences prior to coming to us. And so sometimes students will ask to step out of the room depending on the topic, and we will honor that and ensure that they are well while we're having conversations that maybe are triggering to them and their past experiences. In the evening, once we wrap up at 9 o'clock, students have the opportunity to do a few things. If someone is just exhausted and ready to go to bed, they can go ahead and do that. But we know that many times the students suddenly get a burst of energy at this time and like to engage and get to know one another. So we have a couple activities. We have Goldie's Game Room that's open to them for free bowling, billiards, and activities there. Or they can go to the Comstock Bar Room, where we have low sensory, kind of quieter activities that are taking place in that space, and those are facilitated by our orientation leaders. On the second day of orientation, we will continue to offer our grab and go, what we call the brunch bags, at Comstock Dining Hall for new students. They can pick those up and take those with them before their advising appointment. We've partnered, continue to partner with Dining for these, but this year we're actually also offering a point of sale, so students can buy some refrigerated items in addition to what we are already providing, should they choose to. And then if they need to drop off larger luggage, items, which you would be surprised the size of luggage that we get for one night. Students are bringing some large carry-ons, if not full suitcases, at different times. It's kind of interesting. But we will collect their luggage in the union. We'll hold on to that for them while they go see all of you in the colleges and while they're connecting with your teams. And then they can come back to us and pick it up at the end of the day. So again, for the CFANS group, we will continue to do as we have, busing them over on a specific charter, and then they just have to return on the campus connector. I'll pause there very quickly. Amy, how am I doing on time?
Great, it's 10:30 and no questions in the chat.
Great. So for our international students, we still have a 2-day experience with them with the remote and in person. So they're advised remotely, and then we will see them in August. We'll continue to offer that. We continue to partner with the Global Gopher webinar series. I'm actually doing a session next week to any of our incoming international students. And we do a check-in and welcome with ISSS in partnership. So just happy to continue to be able to offer that given everything going on around us and in the world. It's key for us to continue to center the needs of our international students and their unique experience. So wanted to highlight just a few things on family orientation and our framework for it. We invite families to join their students at orientation and see this as something that is super critical to a student's transition. As some of you may have experienced or know, if you have children or are connected to family members that have children, the K through 12 experience is very, very hands-on and heavy access to family members. And when our families come to us for the college experience, it is very, very distinct. And so we focus on ensuring that our families start to see themselves as more of a coach and a support to their student rather than being the one that is initiating the contact at first. And so we start to build that language and kind of share what we hope they will become in their student's journey. We help them to understand the university academic and behavioral expectations of students. They have a full separate orientation experience. They are separated from their student for the majority of the day, and that is intentional to start to build off of what the college experience will be. And most importantly, I wanted to make sure you all know we do not encourage families to come back on day 2. There are activities that we facilitate for them on day 2 if they are around. We see that with many of our out-of-state families who have made it a weekend or a longer vacation time frame. We try to offer them things to do while the student is with you in the advising appointment. Some of those activities that we offer are tours of different spaces here on campus, and so let us know if you're seeing any type of like wandering behavior or they need to be with their student, because we are not encouraging that. We try to keep them busy with other activities while the students are with each of you in an advising appointment. You can see here some of the sessions that we're offering to family members. Again, our goal is to give them as much information as we can to get them to understand how much we have to offer for their student, so that they know that there is a concerted effort from all of us here on campus to support their student in their transition. And again, we offer tours of different spaces for the family members so that they do not show up at your doorstep that morning. So just want to offer our sincere gratitude. We know that many of you are doing great work to connect with our students to help them feel welcomed and to get them set up for their academic success. And we could not do this without each of you. So our sincere gratitude from the Orientation and Transition Experiences team.
Thanks so much, Lisette, for everything that OTE and you all do to support students as well. That kudos and gratitude is likewise mutual. Do we have any questions? We have a couple of minutes if there are questions. Okay, well then let's move on to our next presenting team. We have